Hi, everyone. This is Mr. Eisenbrown from the School Counseling Office here at Evergreen Park Community High School. Wanting to share the information that was presented at the Parent Forum a couple weeks ago, the College Information Parent Guardian Night. We want to thank those who were able to be in attendance, but we want to make sure that those parents that were not able to make it still had access to all the information if their student is interested in attending a tour four-year college. Now, the information contained within is primarily for junior parents and guardians and their students. However, if you have a younger student and want to kind of get a jump on learning a little bit more about the college process, this information is definitely relevant for you as well. So we know right now, families that have junior students all across the country are asking themselves some burning questions. Every year, these are the ones that families ask. How does my student find the right college? Again, there's over 5,000 colleges in the United States alone. How do they narrow that down to the one that is the best fit for them? How do they actually even apply? What's the process for going through and submitting an application to a university? How do my family and I afford this? Again, a very, very common question, as the cost of college, unfortunately, is not going down. So how do we make it financially affordable for my family and my student? And are they actually ready to go off to a four-year college and be a semi-independent student and individual on a college campus? So one thing we want to start off with that a lot of parents and guardians and students that are new to this process, they want to know, what do colleges actually look for in undergraduate admissions? What are those factors that they use to determine whether or not a student will be accepted into their university? Well, the reality is every college has their own admission standards. These are the most common factors that colleges will use. Not every college uses all these factors, and each college weighs them a little bit differently. But by and large, here are those things that they often consider. The most common one is cumulative grade point average, what a student has done in their classes throughout the course of their high school career here at Evergreen Park Community High School. And again, this is an average of every class the student has taken throughout their time in high school. It's not a semester GPA. This is a running updated total that adjusts at the end of every semester. So the minimum GPA that colleges will consider looking at, this is for the majority of schools, is a 2.0. Typically, anything under 2.0, colleges will not consider for admissions for that student. Again, there's always exceptions to every rule when there's 5,000 plus colleges and universities, but by and large, that tends to be the minimum number is about a 2.0. With that being said, the average GPA of students that get accepted to colleges and universities is significantly higher than that. And I'll show you a slide in a little bit that will demonstrate the average GPAs of accepted students at some popular schools that EPCHS students apply to. They also look at class rigor and relevance. Class rigor refers to the difficulty level of the class, and a lot of times that refers to honors as well as advanced placement courses. But when they also look at for relevance is seeing, do the classes you took in high school make sense for what you want to do? Are you challenging yourself academically while you're in high school to prepare yourself for college? So for example, if you put down on an application that the student wants to be a business major, did you take Introduction to Business and Accounting while you were in high school? If you want to be in the medical field, did you take Anatomy and Physiology while you were in high school, or perhaps AP Biology or AP Chemistry? So again, classes that make sense for what that student wants to do. And again, are you taking a challenging curriculum that will set you up for success on the college level? Additionally, a lot of schools look at class rank. Because GPA can vary so much from school to school. Some schools are on 4.0 scales, 5.0 scales. Some schools are even on 8.0 scales. So sometimes it's hard to differentiate what one GPA means from a school in Illinois here at EPCHS to, let's say, a school in Colorado or Texas. So class rank is a nice way for colleges to see how a student does amongst their own peer group within their own environment. And traditionally speaking, most colleges are looking for students to place in the top half of their graduating class. Next, standardized test scores, SAT and or ACT scores. As you everybody's aware, juniors are going to take the SAT in school coming up on April 13th. Again, that is test day for all students in the state of Illinois. This is an actual SAT in which they will be able to use their score for admissions to college as well as for scholarship consideration. And additionally, if they wish to take another SAT beyond the test they're taking on April 13th, students can absolutely do so by going to their College Board account. They would have to pay for that exam and select a test location. The next upcoming dates are going to be May 7th and June 4th at local high schools in the area. They're always on Saturday mornings. As well, some students will elect to take the ACT. Again, all colleges will consider the highest test score of either test. It's not one is not better than the other. One is not considered more than the other. It's just your highest test score on either of those exams. If students do want to take the ACT, they would register through ACT.org. The next upcoming exams are June 11th and July 16th, also Saturday mornings. Colleges also consider personal essays, which students will work on in their composition class during the second half of this semester. They'll look at recommendations. They'll look at extracurricular activities and service. And again, as I mentioned before, every college does factor in different things. Again, for example, some colleges will use class rank highly, as well as extracurriculars. Some colleges will not look at recommendation letters. Again, it really just depends on the individual college. So before we go any further, one thing I want to at least mention is social media. On many applications, it will ask students if they'd like to list their handles or their how they can be found on various social media platforms, so Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. And again, students typically put these down there. So what that means is sometimes the colleges will take a look to see what's out there. See, are they being good citizens? If they've talked repeatedly about all the charity work they've done throughout their time in high school, are they seeing that play out as well on their social media feeds? Again, just to verify that the students are who they say they are, and vice versa. Please be aware of any negativity that students may be placing out there. Maybe things that are not so kind and not being very responsible digital media citizens. So we encourage students and their families to really take a look and just make sure that whatever is being put out there for the world and college admissions people to see is the way you want to portray yourself. Again, we like to let students and families make them aware that this is something some schools and colleges do check out. All right. So now we're jumping right into fit. So finding the right fit is ultimately the most important thing in ensuring that a student will attend the right school and hopefully finish at that same university. Now, fit really comes down to three factors. It comes down to academic. Is the student going to be academically challenged and going to be academically successful in the classes that they take, as well as their intended major? Is it a good social fit? Does the student enjoy being on the campus? Are there things for them to do? Do they have people they enjoy interacting with on a daily basis? And lastly, the financial fit, making sure that students and their families can afford the cost of attendance at a particular university. If any one of those factors is way off, oftentimes that's when we see students not finish their time at that school. So again, that's what we want students and families to think about, is finding the right fit for them. This should not be groupthink. This should not be students just getting together with a group of their friends and deciding to go somewhere, because, again, not every college is right for every student. There are wide differences in terms of academic profiles for students, in terms of the campus environments, in terms of the finances as well. So again, this should be an individualized decision for students and their families. So we want students to develop their own criteria. We want them to think, what do they want out of their college experience? This is the first really big life decision that we want them to play the lead in, right? In finding out what is that good college for them. Again, along with the family, of course, but we want the students to be very proactive in terms of trying to do the research to find those right schools. So we tell them to develop their own criteria. And a number of the factors we want them to consider are listed here, including admission standards, size of the school, location, the reputation of the selected majors, club, student organization, social atmosphere, and cost. And we will elaborate on all of these factors as we move forward, starting off with admission standards. So it's really important for students to know what the college is looking for in potential applicants. Again, what you see here are the average GPAs and test scores of students that have been accepted to some popular colleges. These places are ones that students from Evergreen Park uh, apply to fairly frequently. And again, why it's important to know this is to know what your odds of acceptance may be. And again, as you can see, the GPAs and SAT scores vary widely from school to school. So just looking at the top two on the left side there, University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, the average accepted student has a 3.7 GPA and a 1315 on the SAT. And just one down below, Northern Illinois University in DeKalb has a 3.15 average accepted GPA and a slight range from a 1010 to an 1180 on the SAT. So again, if I have a 3.1 GPA, I know that I'm probably a pretty good candidate for Northern Illinois University. Now, if I want to apply to the University of Illinois, I can certainly still get in, but it might be a little bit more challenging because I fall a little bit further underneath their average GPA. And again, please know that these are just averages, which means 50% of students that get accepted will have above that GPA, and 50% of students that get accepted will have below that GPA. They are not cutoffs. It's just simply useful data to help make informed decisions. So again, as you can see, there are a wide range of GPA and SAT accepted scores. So one thing we want students and families to know going into this next admission cycle is that many colleges across the country are going to allow students to apply as test optional. Um, this last year, even all Illinois public schools allowed students to do this as well. And it's going to be likely for many colleges, not all, across the country. And what it does is it allows students to have the choice of whether or not they want to have their test scores used in admissions decisions. So again, if students do not submit their test scores or want to apply as test optional, it is not held against them. The colleges are just going to consider those other factors that they use for admissions. Um, so again, hopefully this will be one where it reduces a little bit of that pressure necessarily on the SAT. Again, we still encourage students to take it because there are some schools that are going to require uh, the SAT scores for both admissions and scholarships. So obviously they will take it here at school, but hopefully this will just allow a little bit less pressure on those test scores if they know that they're going to be applying to quite a few test optional universities. Unfortunately, not every college has made their decision about that just yet, but in the coming weeks and months, most colleges will have finalized whether or not they will be test optional for the next admission cycle. All right. One additional thing I always like to show, because we oftentimes have students that are looking to apply to highly selective schools, and it often refers to colleges in the Ivy League as well as other local places like Northwestern, Notre Dame, University of Chicago, just about how difficult it can be to get in. As you can see, the middle 50% of SAT scores are pretty high. These are test scores typically in the 95th percentile and above. And even amongst those students that apply, a very small percentage of those students do get accepted. Again, it is not meant to deter anybody from applying to those schools. It is simply meant to, identify the reality of how challenging sometimes it can be to get into a highly selective school. So if your student is a good candidate for these colleges based on their GPAs, their grades, their test scores, by all means, if it's a school that makes sense for them, please have them still apply. But we would never suggest just applying to one of the highly selective schools and that's it. You would want to make sure you have some other options available as well. Again, just helpful information if students and families are potentially considering having their students apply to a highly selective school. All right. Now we talked about admission standards. Now let's talk a little bit about school size, a really important factor. Again, students here at EPCHS have had the luxury of going to a relatively small school throughout grammar school, throughout junior high, and then in high school. We're a very small school as it pertains to other high schools in the area. Now, obviously, that can make a difference in going to their college environment. Large schools, small schools, there's pros and cons to both, which we'll kind of highlight here. One thing I do want to point out, the picture you see below is Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. And the reason we point that out is because it is a very vast campus. Walking from one side of campus to the other will take about 45 minutes. So it would not be a situation where students are able to roll out of bed and then get to class in 5 minutes. It will take more organization, more planning, and more alarms to wake them up in the morning. So again, large universities offer more majors, more specializations, just simply because they have the facilities to accommodate that. They allow for more undergraduate research because a lot of their funding is based on the research that they do. They're going to have more opportunities for various student organizations, clubs, and a wider alumni base because there are more graduates of those universities because of simply the size of the school. Now, on the opposite side, smaller schools provide more personalized attention. It's an easier campus to navigate. So perhaps you could wake up, roll out of your bed, and be in class in 5 minutes. Smaller student to faculty ratios, they certainly probably would not have giant lecture hall classrooms. And then you would have professors who actually teach the courses. At larger research-based universities, oftentimes the classes are taught by a graduate assistant, with the professors just sometimes being available for office hours. Whereas at small schools, the professors actually teach their courses and are more accessible to their students. So again, why both large and small schools have great benefits. We really want students to consider what type of student they are and what kind of education are they looking for. And we want them to be really honest with themselves. If they are not a very organized student, if attending class here at Evergreen Park sometimes is a challenge, or staying awake during class is a challenge, then it may be challenging to be at a large institution where you do have to, kind of plan ahead to get to class. And then once you're in class, you're going to be in a large lecture hall with 400 other students. Is it better for them to be in a small environment where that professor can walk around the room and interact on a more frequent basis? Again, this is an individual thing that each student and their families really need to think about, is that school size. And next, college location. You are looking right now at a picture of the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Everybody thinks they are going here. Or UCLA, Arizona State, University of Miami are ones we hear very, very frequently where students want to go. And we understand, right? The winter months going into the spring sometimes can dredge on. So everybody would like to go to a warm environment, especially when it's 10 below in February. But the reality is, of our students that graduate, they go 85 to 90% of them go to school within about 4 hours for home. And why that is kind of the sweet spot is it allows them the opportunity to, number one, get home if they need to, can get laundry done, can see their high school friends, see the family, have a home cooked meal. But yet it doesn't really allow for people to just come up and visit them and check in on them every night of the week. Again, allows them to kind of dip their toe into being independent adults. So that typically is what we see within about 4 hours from home is kind of the sweet spot for students going away. Now, that being said, students going to college in a different part of the country can be a very worthwhile experience. Different geographical regions of the country all have their own unique characteristics and can be really beneficial. But what we really do recommend is if students and families are considering sending their student a distance away, we definitely recommend multiple visits to those locations. Because what you don't want to have happen is have your student apply, get accepted, and then go off to a college that they've never been to before that is many, many hours, or in some cases a plane ride away from home, get there and realize within a week or two that they do not want to be there. And then come back home, because what will happen is then you will likely lose a housing as well as student deposit. Student will lose the opportunity to then probably enroll in college during that semester. So they will be a semester behind and thousands of dollars in deposit money lost. So again, doing the research and finding out that information beforehand is really, really important. So we definitely recommend it. Now, we realize that not every student and family is able to fly all over the country for various locations, but if it is somewhere that a student is really serious about possibly attending, we certainly recommend trying to do what you can to make sure that the student is comfortable in that campus environment. And also try to identify resources at or near the school. So if there's family members anywhere nearby, family, friends, if the college has something set up for students from the Midwest or even the Chicagoland area, those can be helpful resources for students who are going away a distance. All right, next, reputation of selected majors. So if you were sitting here right now and you see that and you think, oh my gosh, my student doesn't know what they want to do yet, that is absolutely okay. It is okay for students to go into college undecided. Years ago, that was kind of a little bit frowned upon, but it really isn't any longer. Colleges have realized that it's close to 3/4 of college students change their majors at least once. It's almost half of college students change their major twice. So it's okay not to know and just admit that you don't know what you want to do at age 17 without additional information. So freshman, sophomore year, students will take their general ed classes as well as some electives to kind of gauge areas of interest that they may want to explore. But with that being said, if your student has always known that they want to be an engineer or a nurse, make sure that the student is looking into those majors on the colleges that they're applying to. Number one, make sure they actually have the majors. Not every college offers a bachelor's degree in nursing. Not every college has an engineering department or aviation department. Again, just make sure that they have those. And if so, do research on the quality of those programs. If it's a program that requires a licensing exam to go into that field, what percentage of their students that graduate from that university pass their licensing exam? What percentage of students, if it's an undergraduate program in pre-med or biology that are designed for med school, what percentage of their students get accepted to medical school? Or any other thing like that. So that being said, you really want to make sure you do your research in terms of that major at those colleges. Next, clubs and student organizations. There are so many different opportunities for students to get involved in college. And one of the great things about our students here at EPCHS is they are very involved in athletics, activities, all the different things we have on our campus. And we encourage them and want them to do some of those things on their college campus to get the most out of their experience. Again, there's student government, fraternities, sororities, unique clubs. I've listed a couple here. The People Watching Club in Minnesota, as well as the Happiness Club at Northwestern, where they bake cookies during finals time and bring puppies around to the dorms just to put a smile on people's faces. So whatever it is they're looking to do, whatever it is they're interested in, we encourage them to find those things at the campuses that they are possibly considering attending. And lastly, we want them to consider the social atmosphere. They are going to be in class, likely only 15 to 18 hours per week. On average, it's about 3 hours per day. While they've been in high school, and especially if they're involved in activities, they can be here at school about 40 to 45 hours a week. So making sure that they're comfortable in that social environment is a really crucial aspect of whether or not they're going to stay there. If a student goes to a university and feels that they don't fit in, for some reason it's just not a good fit, and they're really unhappy, they're unlikely to stay there, right? They're going to want to be in a better environment for them. So doing due diligence ahead of time, and again, visiting the schools is a key component to finding out a little bit about what that school's social atmosphere is like. And again, social atmosphere for colleges does vary greatly from one to another. So being there really does help distinguish what that looks like. All right, let's talk about price. So in terms of cost of attendance, this is what I would really encourage students and families to think about. Oftentimes what is spoken about or publicized is a college's tuition. They'll say perhaps, our tuition is frozen for 4 years. Well, your tuition may be frozen, but if your room and board and your other fees keep rising every year, that's a little different story. So there is a difference in terms of price from a public to a private school. And this is what's called sticker price, right? And again, we say it because it's just like when you're going to the car dealership. This is the price that you see on the windshield, but you know that may not be the actual final price. So public universities, by and large, will have a lower sticker price, especially in-state public universities, because that's what's funded, versus private schools will oftentimes have a higher sticker price. Um, we'll indicate a little bit about how you can distinguish that a little bit later. And then in-state schools, again, those are Illinois public schools versus out-of-state public schools. So out-of-state public schools usually charge an additional fee for out-of-state students. It's roughly about $10,000 more per year. There are some exceptions, which we'll also mention. So what we want students to do is we don't want them to feel priced out just yet. Um, we want you to consider all colleges that make sense and don't feel priced out. Now, looking at sticker prices is something you can certainly do, but please understand that that is before any sort of scholarships, any sort of financial aid, before any loans or anything like that is considered. So again, we don't feel priced out just yet. And again, we know that looking at some of the sticker price for private colleges can be very, very scary, but also know that they can end up sometimes being more affordable than public universities because they can offer more in terms of scholarships, in terms of institutional grants and other aid. So when it's all said and done, many times they can come in as competitive or lower than public schools. So we don't want you to feel priced out just yet. So apply to all that makes sense for the other factors, and then when the financial aid award letters come in, you see where the best fiscal value lies. All right. If you want to get a jump on merit-based scholarships, the opportunity to do so is out there for many, many colleges and universities. Um, they will be very transparent about what they will potentially offer students when they are accepted. And that's when these are awarded, is upon acceptance at a university. And they do this a lot of times based on, again, students' academic marks, including GPA, SAT, or ACT scores. And if your families and students are looking at specific universities and want to see what they can potentially get in terms of merit-based scholarships, simply just go to the search engine you use and type in University of XYZ, whatever it is, merit scholarships, and see if it's listed. Again, not every school will have their scholarship ranges listed, but many, many do. What you see on the right-hand side is the scholarship awards for Western Illinois. It's called the Western Commitment Scholarship. And as you can see listed right there, it's a little bit blurry, but any student with above a 3.0 and any student with above a 1030 on the SAT is going to get some money in terms of academic scholarships. Again, the range from 1030 to 1190 above a 3.0 can expect to get about 3,000 off per year. If an SAT score goes above a 1,200, they could potentially get up to 6,000 off. And if those SAT scores go above a 1360, possibly getting $10,000 off per year. It's not a negotiable thing. It's just simply awarded when students are accepted. So knowing this, perhaps could guide some applications down the road. Additionally, there's a lot of outside scholarship opportunities. It does take a lot of additional work to find. We've tried to make it as easy as possible here at Evergreen Park. We have a scholarship listing that's available on our website at all times. We update this about every 6 weeks throughout the course of the school year and when it's updated, we email the students directly. But the scholarship listing is available on the website at all times as well. Additionally, there are many scholarship search sites that they're free, they're reputable, they are available. And what a student does is they create a profile, and then oftentimes these sites will match them up with scholarships they may be eligible for on a number of different factors. Different scholarships are out there for a number of factors. Could be academic, could be service, could be background, could be your height, could be your handedness. So again, there's a lot of different things out there and available for scholarships, but it does take a lot of digging. And again, there are additional scholarships oftentimes directly from the college or universities as well. So going to their websites and looking for additional scholarships beyond the ones that are awarded when accepted is something that is definitely recommended as well. Okay, so as we mentioned, the sticker price on there that you see for colleges in terms of their cost of tuition is not really what most people pay. It's a really small percentage of families that end up paying the full sticker price. One of the hard parts is financial aid award letters often don't come back until sometimes mid-March, sometimes close to April, particularly for a lot of East Coast schools. And doesn't give a lot of time then from when you receive the financial aid information to when you have to make that decision by May 1st, is when most colleges require the deposit to be submitted. So if families are looking to get a kind of a jump on what the estimated price could be, colleges are required by the Department of Education to put what's called a net cost calculator listed somewhere on the website, which is simply meant to give students and their families an estimate of what they may end up paying, right? That what that net price might end up being. Again, these are estimates; they are not guarantees. It's just something simply to kind of give a better guide of what that financial amount could look like. So if you see on the right hand side, this is Lewis University, uh, their their net price calculator. As you can see in the gray column that's about the middle of the page, the estimated total cost of attendance for Lewis University is about $49,000 per year. However, that's before any sort of scholarships aid are incorporated. So what they do is, based on filling out the net cost calculator, is they estimate what a student might be able to get in terms of scholarship and other grants. And at the end of it, it says the student's estimated net price would end up being about $20,000 per year. So again, for some families, affording $49,000 per year may not be an option, but perhaps affording 20 would be. So again, we definitely encourage students and families looking to get a more accurate glimpse of what the price could be to use those net cost calculators. They're out there and available on the college's websites. So as I mentioned, there's often a difference in public schools in-state versus out-of-state. And a lot of our students do want to leave the state of Illinois. They want to go somewhere else. So in knowing that, there are other Midwest states that want Illinois students. And the way to entice them to go there is they're going to give them tuition breaks. So they're not going to pay the full out-of-state fee. Again, which oftentimes can put them in a price range about the same as our Illinois public universities. Some of the really popular ones in Indiana State University, both Purdue University Northwest as well as Indiana University Northwest are very, very close by. Purdue University Northwest is in Hammond, so a lot of families will have their students just jump on the Bishop Ford and they can be there in about 25 minutes. And again, very affordable for Illinois residents. In Michigan, Ferris State University, Eastern Michigan, give discounted rates, as well as the University of Akron in Ohio. For Wisconsin, pretty much the entire University of Wisconsin college system gives tuition discounts, except for the University of Wisconsin at Madison. But University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, UW Platteville, UW Whitewater, all very, very popular choices with students from Illinois. And then Missouri has many options as well. And beyond these, there are a lot of other schools that will provide in-state scholarships. So for example, if a student has, let's say, a 3.4 GPA and is applying to a certain university, they may, as their scholarship, give that student in-state tuition pricing, kind of as their scholarship incentive. So again, a lot of times there are financially more responsible choices to going out of state, where colleges try to make it financially feasible for Illinois residents to attend there. All right, so we've looked at all the factors. Now we're going to build our list. So we typically encourage students that are looking to apply to those four-year schools to apply to 5 to 7 colleges on average. Now, if a student applies to 10, is that fine? Absolutely. If a student applies to 4 schools, that's absolutely fine as well. What we don't encourage is them to apply to one four-year university. It does not give options. And again, we know that throughout this process, students sometimes change their mind in terms of what they're looking for from August to when they actually have to make that decision at the end of April. So we always usually encourage the students to kind of structure it a little bit like this. You know, it's okay to have 1 or 2 dream or reach schools where they're a little bit underneath that academic profile, but maybe they've always wanted to apply there. They've always wanted to consider going there. So nothing wrong with applying to a school or 2 like that. The majority of schools they should apply to are the ones they're likely to get in. They're right near those academic standards we mentioned earlier. And the reason for that is is if they have more schools that they get accepted to, it provides additional options for students and families, both in terms of preferences, in terms of just overall students liking of that institution, and then for families, hopefully some financial flexibility options as well. And then also 2 to 3 relatively safety schools. I don't love that term, but I've yet to come up with a better one. So 2 or 3 schools that they're pretty sure that when they hit that button to submit that application, that they know they're going to get in. And the benefit there is if they apply to colleges where their academic marks are, kind of greatly above the average student that gets accepted there, they're probably likely to get more money in scholarship because those schools would definitely want to get quality students away from other institutions. So again, we want all the colleges on these lists to really meet those criteria that students and families have defined that they want out of a college. All right, just to show a couple example lists and how it does change from student to student. Again, we'll just use 2 example students. Student 1, 3.8 GPA, 1320 on the SAT. They know they want to major in business. For them, their reach schools would be Northwestern University, University of Chicago. Schools they're likely to get in based on those academic marks: University of Illinois, DePaul, Valparaiso, Michigan State University, Marquette. And then their safety schools, again, they hit submit, they're likely to get in based on where their academic marks are, would be Illinois State University, NIU, and Western Michigan. Again, all schools with good business programs, which again makes sense for what the student wants to do. Student 2, however, GPA is a little bit lower, 2.7, SAT at 1010. They don't know what they want to do, which is, again, okay. Now, for this student, their reach school is Illinois State University, because, again, that average GPA that gets accepted at ISU is about a 3.4. Now, student 2, that's their reach school, but for student 1, that was their safety school. So again, that's just demonstrating how it can change from one student to another. Their likely schools, we're going to be saying Xavier, Eastern Illinois, SIU, Governor State, and IU Northwest. And their safety school is going to be Moraine Valley Community College, which we will talk about at length a little bit later. Again, every student's list should be different based on what they're looking for and what those criteria are that they have determined for themselves. All right. So now moving on, there are several online resources that are available and that we encourage our students to utilize. Number 1, Naviance. We absolutely recommend students use Naviance. Every EPCHS student has a personalized account. We have used this many times throughout the course of our Monday idea periods. So all students should know how to easily access Naviance. It's right through the student section of the EPCHS website as well. The really nice function that can be utilized during this process is what's called the supermatch function. And what it does is it will allow students to enter what they are looking for in terms of their personal criteria. So if they want a small school in the Midwest that has under a certain amount of students, that has a certain activity and a certain major, they can put all that in there. And what supermatch function does is it filters down to exactly those colleges that match up with what they're looking for. So if a student enters their criteria and it matches them with colleges that have exactly what they're looking for, we definitely encourage do some more research on those colleges, find out more, because it looks to have everything they're looking for. So it's a great way to help filter down from 5,000 plus colleges to hopefully a manageable amount for students and families to consider. So again, it has information on every college in the United States, as well as many international colleges as well. So again, a really, really great function we want students to utilize. Additionally, Big Future by College Board is another somewhat similar resource. All students have College Board accounts. And this is a unique function of it is they can access net cost calculators through this as well to help get that estimate of potential costs. Okay, so one of the things we want students to do is visit. Get on college campuses if they can. What we always tell students is you wouldn't buy a car by just looking at one picture you see online, right? You would go, you would see it in person, you would test drive it. So why would you not do that for your college choice? It's the best way to get a personal feel of those colleges. And again, every college does have a different feel to it. Any student that has visited multiple college campus will tell you the same. And also it gives you an idea about what that campus environment is like. And again, We want them having as much information as possible so they can make an informed decision when it comes time to actually submit that student deposit. So again, we here at Evergreen Park Community High School, we let students have 2 days of excused absences in their junior year and 2 days of excused absences in their senior year, specifically just to go visit colleges. Again, we want them to have that experience of being on a college campus. So how to get the most out of their campus visit? Again, if it's an informal visit and that's all you have time for, or you're just there on a weekend, walking through the campus is better than not doing it. But if you have the opportunity, please try to speak with an admissions advisor, take that campus tour, see how far it is to walk from the dorms to the academic classrooms, see the dorms themselves. We also want students, while you're on campus, try to talk to those students that you see. If you approach them respectfully and just ask a question of how do they like the school, or how are the professors here, or how are the classes there, students on that campus are usually going to want to share their experiences and give you that unfiltered opinion about that school. Again, we know that you're going to hear a lot of information on a campus tour, but again, tour guides they're salespeople for the university. Talking to just students that you interact with on campus will be a more unfiltered opinion of the school. We also encourage students, if it's an option, to sit in on classes and to visit the departments of their possible majors. So if you want to be an engineer, visit the engineering department. If you want to be a nurse, see what nursing resources they have available, and etc. Also, eat in the dining halls, and then if they have the option, stay overnight on campus, especially as you narrow down your colleges to maybe your final choices that you're deciding between. Doing an overnight visit can be a really great way to see what it's like at those colleges when you're kind of left there as a student, and what you'll be like when you go there in the fall. So again, we want them having as much information as possible. Campus visits are absolutely great. If for some reason you're not able to go for a campus visit, we know that it might not be possible in all circumstances. Virtual tours are the next best thing. And again, those are usually accessible through the college's admissions website. All right. So now they've done their research. They know where they're going to apply to. When do they apply? The answer is this fall. The vast majority of our students should be applying to their schools between August and November of their senior year. And oftentimes it's before November 1st. And I'll explain why a little bit later. So there's a few types of decision periods and application periods that we want students and families to be aware of. The first is the regular decision deadline. And that just simply means that this is the date after which a college will not accept any more applications. So if the college's regular decision deadline is March 1st and you want to apply on March 4th, that is kind of too bad, so sad. They're done. It's their cutoff mark. So that's regular decision. Rolling admission and early action I'll talk about on the next slide. But one thing I do want to mention is the fourth item listed here, an early decision deadline. This is a relatively rare occurrence, but some schools do use this. One thing to know about early decision is it is a binding program in which if a student applies under an early decision agreement, they are committing themselves to attend that institution if they are accepted. It is a contract in which must be signed by the student, by their parents, and by their counselor. And again, it takes a little bit of the choice away from students. So again, it is something to know. And colleges are going to hold students and families to those contracts. Because again, they are opening up a spot potentially in their college for those students. So again, just be very aware of those. All right. So rolling admission, the best way to think about this is kind of like I always say, like a snowball, right? So as you can imagine, there's no deadlines for these schools. What happens is college gets an application, makes a decision, sends it out. They get an application, make a decision, send it out. And it keeps just going like that until their freshman class is full. And again, the nice thing about this for students and parents is a lot of times, especially if you apply early in the fall, schools with rolling admissions can sometimes get a decision back to students within about 2 to 6 weeks. So it's a little bit faster. They might be able to know that they've been accepted at those rolling admission schools. However, we don't know when they're going to fill up because, again, like we said, that it just kind of rolls on until they're full. Sometimes they will cut that off in April. Other times it will be July. It all just depends on how many applications and acceptances those universities have. So again, just to know that much about rolling admission. Now, the next kind of deadlines you're going to see are early action or priority. Uh, those some schools will use one name versus some will use the other. They're interchangeable. Essentially, what that means is if a student applies to under this type of application, early action or priority, it's usually due November 1st tends to be the day, by November 1st. Not for all schools, but for the vast majority, November 1st tends to be like early action or priority day. What that means is the college is going to let the students know whether or not they got in a little bit sooner. It's going to increase the odds of students getting accepted, as most colleges accept a higher percent of students during the early action or priority period. And also, it will make them eligible for more money in terms of scholarships because many universities use that early action or priority deadline for their merit-based scholarships or for their competitive scholarships. So again, we definitely do recommend applying early action or priority, especially for students that are looking to gain as much merit-based scholarship as possible. So again, we definitely do recommend it. All right. So next, application types. So there's a few different types of applications out there. The first one we're going to touch upon is the common application. It's used by over 900 colleges and universities across the country as well as internationally, including all Illinois public universities. So each college charges what they want. Some colleges do not have a fee to apply using the Common App, but it is a one-stop shop. Once the student completes their Common Application, again, it can be a little bit lengthy to complete. We usually don't recommend students try to fill it out in one night, but if they do it a little bit over the course of a couple of days or a week, it is a very manageable process. It does include an essay, which students will be working on during their composition class this semester. So once that's done, though, they can then send that out to any of the colleges that they're looking to apply to that use the Common Application. Most of our students that are looking to apply to four-year schools do complete the Common App at some point. Again, what's also very nice about it is that the Common App links with the student's Naviance account, so we can send their transcripts and other supplemental materials electronically and almost instantly. So it takes away having to mail anything in. Again, it just makes it a more efficient process for students and their families. One thing to know is that in order to to connect Naviance with the Common App, students must use their EPCHS email when they complete the Common App. So that is an absolute must. All right, the next kind of application students may see are what are called self-reported academic record. And this is where colleges will not ask for transcripts from the high school to make an admissions decision. Instead, they're going to tell the student, just tell us what you got in your classes in high school. What classes did you take each semester of high school, and what grades did you get in those classes? So again, one of the things we do not recommend students doing is trying to guess at this. That will be a horrible outcome in all likelihood because it's going to be very difficult to remember what they got in a certain class semester one of their freshman year of high school. So what we want them to do is instead, if they're applying to a school that asks them to submit their academic record to self-report it, come get a transcript from their counselor. Very easy for us to do. We'd be more than glad to provide that so that way they can put down accurate information. And the reason that's so important is because what will happen is a student will complete the self-reported academic record. The college will review it and make their admissions decision. And if that student decides to attend there, great. However, at the end of the high school year, when the graduation is over with, if that student is attending there, that college will then come to us at the high school and say, please give us the high school transcript. That college will then look at the high school transcript that we've provided, as well as the student academic report that the student did, and they're going to hold them side by side. And if there are noticeable discrepancies between the two, that school has the option to reject the admissions offer. We do not want to see that happen to any of our students. It does happen every year. It is yet to happen to an EPCHS student, and we do not want that. We want that to continue. None of our students we want to be affected. So please, 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 if you are applying to a school that asks you to self-report your academic marks, come see your counselor for the transcript. All right. After they've applied, a couple things. The student needs to know what they have to provide to the college. Again, as we mentioned, every college has their own unique requirements. Sometimes it may be a form that has to be provided to a teacher or counselor. Again, they are required to know that. Oftentimes what happens is a student hits submit and they think that that's it, and they don't check their follow-up emails, which would tell them specifically what they need to do to complete that application so it's set for review. Request to have your transcript submitted through Naviance. We will direct students on how they can do that. And again, if it's through Common App and it's already matched up with Naviance, that'll be done electronically. The students need to know if they need to send their test scores directly from the testing agency. We do place the students' SAT scores or ACT scores, if they provide it to us, on their transcript. However, some universities will not look at a test score on a high school transcript. It has to be sent directly from the testing agency, which means the student would have to log into their College Board or ACT account and pay to have it sent to that university. So again, students are responsible for knowing if that is required of them. Again, we always recommend students following up with the admissions representatives of that university a week or two after they apply, just to kind of check in, see if there's anything. It's also a nice way to demonstrate interest to that university. So again, just a nice little contact periodically is a good thing. Stalking them is not. Many people we know at admissions will tell tales of students messaging them on a daily basis. Again, please remember that they are going through thousands of applications. A check-in every once in a while is nice. Emailing them every day is not. So again, also check to see if the school offers additional scholarships, as we mentioned earlier. And then again, one thing for students and their families, we want to let them know this will happen, and do not panic, is that a week or two after your student applies, they will get an email or a letter from that university saying they have nothing, saying they have no transcript, no test scores, no recommendation letters, they have nothing. These are automatically generated letters that go home. And again, we understand why students and parents would be concerned about that. In most cases, what happens, they're receiving hundreds of applications and materials a day, and it just takes a while for that to get processed through the system and updated. Oftentimes, if you're really concerned, please give that admissions office a call, and more often than not, you will find out that everything has been submitted and it just hasn't been updated within the student portal yet. So please don't panic. Just know that you are going to get those letters or emails from the colleges shortly after you apply. All right, recommendation letters. Again, this can be a determining factor for those colleges that consider them. If a college asks for recommendation letters, they will use them in terms of prioritizing admissions. So one of the things we want them to do is really give some thought to who they want to ask to write that letter of recommendation. When we're talking about recommendations, we are primarily talking about academic recommendations. That's what the colleges are primarily looking for. Now, is it okay for a coach or a boss or somebody that knows the student very well to write an additional recommendation on their behalf? Sure it is. However, not every college will accept those recommendations. But for the ones that do, you can absolutely submit them. However, most colleges are looking for academic recommendations. So when you're asking those teachers, we want you to think about who are those teachers that you've had a good connection with, good relationship with, that could write you a letter of recommendation that will ultimately help your application and help you get accepted. We want students to ask teachers in person. If they are going to be taking time out of their day to write you a letter to help you get into college, the very least we ask students to do is just go to that teacher in person and ask. And oftentimes what will happen is a conversation will come out of that, just asking for more information from the student by the teacher. So again, we want students to do this and think about this and ultimately ask those teachers before they leave at the end of junior year. So that way teachers have it already in their minds that they have to provide this letter at some point. Um, the minimum time that we ask students to give to teachers is 2 weeks. If you ask a teacher 24, 48 hours before a deadline, you probably are not going to get a letter. Or if you do get a letter, it's not going to be one that would be able to help your application, right? We want thoughtful letters from teachers that help. Asking them 24 hours before a deadline will not do that. And we say 2 weeks is kind of the deadline because, again, think about it. Teachers are teaching 3 to 4 classes. They have upwards of 120 students. A lot of our teachers coach or moderate clubs and activities. They also have lives and families. So again, 2 weeks is considerate. Anything under 2 weeks can be very challenging. And again, we want them to give thought to who they ask. And again, please know teachers can and will say no, and depending on the circumstance. If they don't feel they can write a letter that would aid a student in getting admitted to a college, they can say no, and that's okay. And that would just require you to go to somebody else to have that discussion about writing a letter for you. Okay, so a lot of what we talked about is about applying to those four-year schools because it is more complicated because there are so many more of them than community and junior colleges. So we know that not every student, a four-year university or college is not right for every student. Not every student will be able to attend a four-year school for a multitude of different reasons. It could be grades, it could be finances, it could be simple maturity issues. Students not ready to go away. So for those students, we have an absolutely wonderful resource in Moraine Valley Community College. It's a great way to stay on track, to complete academic coursework and be done with their college experience in 4 years. Students who didn't academically qualify for a four-year school, or maybe didn't academically qualify for the four-year school they wanted to go to when they were in high school, get the chance to restart their GPA. Maybe they started out slow in high school and didn't do as well as they would like their freshman, sophomore year, but really turned it on junior and senior year, but their GPA just never got to the point it needed to be at for that school they were looking for. Moraine Valley or community or junior college gives them a chance to restart that grade point average. Four-year universities, after a certain number of credits taken at a community or junior college, are not going to go back and look at the high school transcripts. So if you went from being a 2.3 GPA student in high school to a 3.3 GPA student in college at Moraine Valley, that's what the four-year university is going to look at, is that 3.3 from your community college, and will help you hopefully get into the four-year university of your choice. From an affordability standpoint, junior and community colleges are an more affordable route. Their prices per credit are about 50% to 75% less than four-year schools. We'll show you an indicator of that as well. So if Moraine Valley is an option for your student and something you want to consider, if they apply in the spring of their senior year, after they apply, what they would do is they would take their placement test at that community college. And after that, they select courses with an academic advisor. We highly, 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 highly encourage students to pick classes with an academic advisor to ensure that those classes they're taking transfer over to the next school. Do not have them randomly pick classes because it sounds fun or sounds cool. Hopefully they can find ones that do both, that are interesting to them and also benefit them down the road in their future plans. But there are a lot of classes at community colleges that would not transfer over. So please sit down with an academic advisor to pick your college courses. So again, while Moraine Valley is an outstanding option for those students that are going to remain here at home, if there are families that are looking to have their student leave the house, go away, but maybe they didn't get into or could not afford the four-year college of their choice, please know that there are a lot of junior or community colleges that are located really close to major universities, which can provide students an option to find housing and attend the community college while still in the overall atmosphere of that larger institution. So a great example of that is Parkland College, which is right down the road from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, in which students would attend Parkland College. They find housing in the area and then still have the opportunity to be involved with the the larger campus environment that University of Illinois can provide. Heartland Community College is right down the street from Illinois State University as well. As with most large universities, will have a junior community college right nearby. All right. If students decide to attend Moraine Valley Community College, which again, a large percentage of our students do decide to attend there are three options. There's the transfer program, in which their goal is to go to Moraine Valley for 2 years and then transfer to a four-year university to get that bachelor's degree. Moraine Valley has an articulation agreement with all Illinois public universities to make sure that those credits transfer seamlessly. And again, they do this with other colleges in Illinois and across the country as well. But sitting down with that academic advisor to make sure is really, really an advisable thing to do. Moraine Valley has 30 plus transfer majors. And again, as I mentioned, after a certain number of credits, that four-year school is not going to look at your high school transcript. If the four-year program isn't for you, Moraine Valley also has career degree programs that are designed to be over with in a certain amount of time, usually about 2 years. And after that, you go right into the workforce in those fields. Those include criminal justice, fire service management, health info technology, human resources, network security, paraprofessional educator, and radiology tech, amongst some. There are many, many more. Moraine Valley also has a certificate program option for students that want to be out and working even sooner. These are 1 or 2 year programs designed to, again, quickly and get students working in those fields. They include automotive technology, baking and pastry, basic nurses assistants, HVAC, welding, network administrator, as well as massage therapy. And again, many, many others. They are all available. All their programs are available for researching on the Moraine Valley academic website. So again, all available, all different options. And again, just this is one of those conversations to have with your student about what it is they're looking to get out of their college experience. All right. And lastly, why Moraine Valley can make sense from a financial standpoint. On the left-hand column, you're going to see the tuition price for the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. It's about $19,000. The asterisk represents that tuition can vary based on your academic program. So if you were going to an engineering program or an aviation program, it's going to cost more than if you were a biology major. The room and board at U of I is about $11,000 with additional expenses, bringing their total to about $33,000 per year sticker price. Again, that's without any sort of financial aid. But that sticker price to four-year total would be $132,000 over the course of 4 years. However, if a student decides to attend Moraine Valley, their tuition for the full year, figuring 15 credit hours per semester, 30 credits in a year, their tuition cost would be about $3,600 with additional expenses for transportation and books, bringing their yearly total to a little bit underneath $6,000. So if a student decided to attend Moraine Valley for their first 2 years and then transfer to the University of Illinois, that four-year total would go from $132,000 to $77,000, saving that student potentially $54,000 per year. And on the right-hand side, we see University of Illinois at Chicago, UIC. Their tuition and fees are about $15,000. For this example, this would be a commuting student, so they would not have a room and board charge. So if a student commuted to UIC over the course of 4 years, that would cost about $60,000. However, if that same student did 2 years at Moraine, then 2 years at UIC, you would be looking at a four-year total of about $41,000. So again, why it can make sense for many students and families. All right, what's next? So this spring, what we really want them to focus on is finishing strong in these second semester classes. This is their last chance to set their GPA for applying to colleges, because as we said, most students will apply August, September, October of next year, hopefully to get into those early action or priority deadlines and have better odds for admissions and more scholarship money. So again, their GPA is not going to change until in their senior year, until January of their senior year. And oftentimes, students will have finished applying by then. So again, this is the last chance to kind of set that GPA and show colleges you are a very, very strong student at the moment. Again, prepare and take the SAT in a couple of weeks here in April, and potentially retake it if you decide to. Again, highest score wins for test scores. They just consider the highest test score no matter how many times you take the SAT or ACT. Again, talk to those adults that you want to write recommendations. Do that now versus Even early in senior year, the more time you give them, the better the letter it's going to be. Visit those schools. Use those 2 days where we give you excused absences. Or if you can't, if you know you're not able to get to those colleges, reach out to their admissions office, make contact with their admissions representatives, and take a virtual tour to give you an idea about what the campus could look like. And also, really, 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 as we talked about earlier, think about what you're looking for in a college. Do the research, use the tools, talk to your counselor, and identify the schools that make sense for what you want out of it. And again, that's spring going into summer. And as we come back in the fall of senior year, we want them to identify the deadlines of the colleges they're applying to. So they're applying well before the due date. We never want students to have all that pressure on them 24 hours before a deadline. Apply well in advance. Consider if they're going to apply to those early application programs. And again, as we say, highly, 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 highly encouraged. Again, better odds for admissions, more likely money in scholarships, and you'll find out sooner. And again, in the fall, if you need to, retake the ACT or SAT one more time. They both hold exams in the fall as well. And again, don't forget about senior year. And one of the things we will share is that all these acceptances that students get are what are called conditional acceptances. It means that they're accepting a student based on what has been submitted in their application. If all of a sudden a senior gets accepted to their colleges and just decides to take senior year off and goes from being a student with all A's to a student with all C's, the college has the option to rescind an admissions invitation and resend any scholarships awarded. So do not forget about senior year. They want you to be the same student in your senior year that you have been throughout your time in high school. And the fall is a great time to visit or revisit the colleges that you've applied to or going to be applying to. Also, we ask students to be flexible, just to know that things change and that's okay. Many times, as I'll sit with students in August and I ask them to list, their top one or two schools that they want to attend, very rarely is that the actual school they end up attending because they get more information, they take those visits, they get the scholarship awards. So be flexible in the process and just know that there will be, things will change throughout the course of the application process. And then complete the FAFSA shortly after October 1st. The FAFSA is the financial aid document, which colleges need to have completed in order to award sometimes merit-based scholarships, but also be eligible for federal and state grants, federal student loans, and work study. Again, that cannot be completed until October 1st of 2022. We will also have FAFSA completion nights as well as many resources available for students and their families. Completing the FAFSA is also a graduation requirement in the state of Illinois. So again, yet another reason why we encourage you to fill out the FAFSA. All right, so with that being said, we know there are going to be many questions that arise from students and their parents. Please reach out to us here in the counseling department with any and all questions. We love answering these questions and getting that information to students and parents so that families can make the most informed decision possible. We know this is a lot of information, and just know you have resources and allies here within the building at EPCHS. Thank you so much for listening in. Please reach out to us with any questions you have and tell your students to contact their counselor, make those appointments, and get their questions answered. Again, thank you all for listening. We appreciate it.